I'm not going to front. I've been pretty pissed at him for a few months, and I've been waiting to see him one-on-one, talk to him man to man. He was on his podcast telling his partner, Matt Barnes, he don't with me because he called me a snitch for calling the league office to ask why Russell Westbrook was not suspended. There's a lot of shit that I don't say. And anybody that knows me knows I ain't no damn snitch. I don't roll like that.
Stephen A. Smith responds to Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson and Stephen A. Smith been going back and forth for a while now, but Steven Jackson has some comments about Stephen A. Smith's potential contract. Stephen A. Smith has his response. Check out what Stephen A. had to say.
Now, let me get to another sports media headline that involves yours truly. Many of you know I've been at ESPN and Disney for nearly 20 years. We've had a good relationship, and I've said on many occasions that I will never speak on my contract negotiations because only a fool talks about his negotiations while they're ongoing.
Stephen A. getting that money, reportedly a 6-year, $120 million contract. So he'll talk about other people's money, but he ain't going to talk about his. But let's keep watching.
I'm not going to start here. However, I do want to acknowledge former NBA player and podcaster Steven Jackson from All the Smoke, who recently made comments about my ongoing discussions with ESPN. I want to read to y'all what he said. Check this out. Stephen A. and I, we disagree on a lot of things, but the respect still remains. And I congratulate him on being able to get that money. Go get that money, bro. I'm never being a hater. Get that money. If anybody deserves it from the way he's self-made, you know Stephen A. deserves it. You ain't got to agree with everything he says to respect him and congratulate him on the success he's had all these years. End quote. Now, let me say this. I appreciate Stephen Jackson saying that. I'm not going to front. I've been pretty pissed at him for a few months, and I've been waiting to see him one-on-one, talk to him man to man.
Stephen A. want to get in a fight with Stephen Jackson? Who y'all got? I need to know in the comment section who you got, Stephen Jackson or Stephen A. Smith in a fight. Let me know in the comment section.
Because he and I haven't spoken since he was on his podcast telling his partner, Matt Barnes, he don't with me because he called me a snitch for calling the league office to ask why Russell Westbrook was not suspended.
Yeah, that was one of the main situations that they had during the whole playoff series when Russ was on the Clippers. I believe it was last season, and they just wanted to know, what happened with the league offices. Why wasn't Russ suspended for that shot on Luka Doncic? And then Stephen A. was like, I called the league office and I just wanted to inquire and wanted to know more. And that's where Stephen Jackson called Stephen A. Smith a snitch. So that's what he's talking about as far as those comments.
To reiterate that point and revisit it for a second, Russell Westbrook was excessively physical with Luka Doncic in the playoffs. Ultimate little scuffle ensued. Russell Westbrook was ejected from the game. Rick should be suspended. I said, had that been Draymond Green, they would have suspended him. Why not suspend Russell Westbrook? At that time, before the next game, NBA Countdown was the pregame show. So I was asked by my superiors at ESPN to call the league office to find out why Russell Westbrook, who had been ejected from that game, wasn't suspended for the next game. And the league gave me the explanation. They didn't suspend him because there wasn't history there, number one. Number two, he left the court in a peaceful fashion, and there was nothing that ensued thereafter. And number three, it was the playoffs. It wasn't a regular season game. While admitting to me, had it been Draymond Green, it might have been a different story. So they gave the explanation, and I went on the air, and I revealed to the audience I called the league office, and that was the explanation. And then Gilly from Wallow and Gilly's podcast went off on social media about me covering, calling the league office. And Matt Barnes and Stephen Jackson ultimately said, I don't agree with Stephen A. on that, et cetera, et cetera. The difference is that Matt Barnes called me up, ultimately came on the show to discuss it with me, on my invite for him to do the same. Wallow and Gilly with Gillies, all I said is this.
Yeah, Stephen A. been tight ever since that whole situation with him and Stephen Jackson. And again, he want to see him in person. They haven't really had time to chop it up, I guess, on the phone or whatever. I guess the lines of communication may be off, but maybe Matt Barnes can kind of, patch that situation up.
You talk about the NBA, I cover it. It was my job to call the league office. I didn't call the league office to get Russell Westbrook suspended. I'd already said if it were me, I would have suspended him. What I called was to find out their rationale behind not suspending him when you know they would have suspended Draymond Green. That is all. It's called doing my job. For that, Steven Jackson labeled me a snitch without knowing all the facts. Never apologized for it or anything like that. And this is a brother that I go back with for years, decades actually. And I didn't appreciate that. First of all,
Hey, Stephen A sound like you about to cry, bro. Cheer up, man. It's not the end of the world. Again, the lines of communication are off, and hopefully they'll be able to chop it up, or maybe they have spoke behind the scenes. I don't know if this is just for content, or maybe Stephen A is being extra, but he seems real emotional talking, about Steven Jackson. Guess they were cool once upon a time many years ago. So I guess he's kind of, heartbroken. Like this is what their friendship has become.
All in our community, we know what being a snitch connotates. That's not some shit you say. And I didn't appreciate that at all. Secondly, especially from...
But you got to think, Stephen A, you're not in the streets. Yeah, you may have grown up in Hollis, Queens or whatever in that era, but you're a civilian, bro. So someone call you a snitch. It's not like, oh my gosh, why'd you call me that name? Again, Stephen A, you're not in the trenches like that. You may not have ever been, in the trenches. You may have just been from a certain environment, but someone calling you a snitch, it don't really hold the same weight as, someone in the streets, actively in the streets and being called a snitch. That could be, life-changing situations depending on the environment you're in. But again, man, Stephen A, you shouldn't be worried about anyone calling you a snitch. You're corporate, you work for Disney. Those words shouldn't affect you like that.
Somebody that I'm pretty damn cool with. But in the end, I know how to differentiate my issue with him over an incident and my issue with him over character. See, I had a problem with Steven Jackson not recognizing and remembering where my character stands. There's a lot of shit that I don't say. And anybody that knows me knows I ain't no damn snitch. I don't roll like that. And so to associate that word with me was highly offensive. And we haven't spoken since. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But having said all of that, I really appreciate him coming out and saying what he said. It meant a lot to me. And I thank him for it, really sincerely. Because I want people to understand, no matter what the deal is, no matter what money it entails, it was earned, not given. Whenever we reach an agreement, which we have not yet, it will be earned. Ain't nobody giving me anything.
One thing about Stephen A, you can hate him, you can love him. He worked his butt off. That's one thing. No one can say, okay, he's in this position. He may say certain things people may not agree with, but he gonna do his podcast. He gonna do his ESPN thing, do his NBA countdown. So he's everywhere on Sports Center, ESPN, all their programming. Then he's doing things on the side as well, contributing to Fox and other news organizations. So all around talent, again, you can hate him or love him, but one thing, he gonna work hard.
I've earned it. And if I earn it, and I show you how this snot-nosed kid from Hollis, Queens, from the streets of Hollis, Queens, New York, ultimately ascends in the business, not as a rap artist, not as an actor and actress, not as a baller, whether it's football or basketball or something else, but through journalism. And I do that with the advent of podcasts and YouTube shows and channels and all of this other stuff. If I could do it, imagine what doors it'll open for the rest of us. That's where I'm coming from with it. And I can't speak on it, and I'm not going to speak on it. But let me assure you of something. While there is an agreement, you have no idea what the deal is. You have no idea what it does entail. And you have no idea about how what I'm aiming to do is going to rock the foundation of this industry.
Looks like Stephen A got some tricks up his sleeves. We don't know the details of his contracts, which are true. He may be working on some things on the side with Disney. He has the Straight Shooter production, his production company. He has his podcast. He executive produce some content, I believe, on ESPN Plus. So he's working. We don't know the details. Yeah, you're right. but you want to be the highest paid personality on ESPN. So you want to make that 20 plus million. That'll make you the highest. That's why I think that number's been floating around. But who knows? Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Maybe they can repost his content on their channels of ESPN and on live TV. So he has ways to work out the deal to make sense for him, his business, his production. So we're going to find out sooner than later.
I'm after big, big, big things, and I can't speak on it until it's done. Only a fool would speak on it prematurely. But I'm coming.
All right, so that's what it is. That's what the response is with Stephen A. Smith and Steven Jackson. Looks like Steven Jackson is turning the corner as far as him being cool with Stephen A. He congratulated him. Get that money, bro. So with all that being said, the contracts, they're not concrete yet with ESPN and Stephen A. But if the numbers are right, he wants that 20 plus million. Everybody in the industry knows he wants to be the highest paid talent on ESPN. So again, we're going to play the waiting game. I'm sure we'll find out more. His contract is coming to an end soon, within the next year or so, maybe next year or so. We're going to find out his contract situation, what's going on. Looks like he wants to be at ESPN. But again, man, we're going to see what happens with Stephen A. Smith and Steven Jackson. See if they can, mend their friendship and be cool again in 2025. But shout out to Stephen A. Smith. Get that money. The more money he gets, it's only going to heighten the content creation in the sports space. So the Pat McAfee's, the Shannon Sharps, the Stephen A's, the Whitlocks, everyone that's doing content either independently or, corporate wise, get your money. It's only going to help everybody else out in this ecosystem. But appreciate y'all watching. Until next time, peace.